Hey guys, with 2024 coming to a close, I wanted to make an updated video on my top paddle picks going into 2025. Now, I know a lot of people have been doing paddle awards and their favorite paddles of the year, but I thought it would be worthwhile for you guys to get my take on it, and so I could give a shout out to my favorite paddle brands of the year. Now, in this video, we're going to cover my favorite paddles in each of the major shapes, and then transition into some of my paddle awards. Starting off, let's take a look at the wide body paddles. At number 3, we have a paddle that's technically not released yet, and that's going to be the ISO Ryu. This has the largest twist weight I've measured in a paddle so far, and it has a really high stability and sweet spot, which is surprising considering that it's actually a 15mm paddle. I would describe it as a juiced up Spartus Apollo since it has that similar high or large sweet spot and high stability, but it's just got a bit more power and pop to it. It does have some Gen 3 style constructioning, specifically at the 4 and 8 positions, but it's not a power paddle per se, more of an all-court style, and it honestly doesn't really play anything special, but it's just a really solid wide body paddle, and something I've been playing really well with lately, so it takes its spot at number 3 for me. For number 2, we have the paddle that I've actually used the most this year, and that's going to be the 11624 Monarch All Court. I'm a really big fan of the CFC surface that 11624 uses, and this is a paddle I'm very familiar and comfortable with, and I'd have no issues bringing this with me into a tournament. So for number 2, Monarch All Court. And finally, at number 1, this would go to the PaddleTech ESQs had the Neonic Flare Prime X not come out. But if I'm looking for something that's fast in the hands with good power and still a forgiving sweet spot, this pick is going to be the Neonic Flare Prime X. It's not the best paddle I play with, but it's one that really surprised me when it did come out, and it's one of my favorites right now. Alright, as for my honorable mentions, these are going to be paddles that I received recently, so I don't have as much time with them, but I can see them shaking up the rankings in 2025 once I get some more time with them. And that's going to be in the 11624 Power Series, the Pegasus, which is the new name for their Monarch shape. But so far, I've been liking this. I would say I'm probably better with the All Court right now, but maybe in 2025 I might like this one better. And the next one is going to be the Pickleball Apes Pulse V. This one has been really good, but just got this maybe a week or two ago, so I haven't had much time yet, but I can see this making the top 3 or top 5 paddles of all time for me, potentially in 2025. Moving on, let's go over my favorite hybrid paddles. At number 3, we have the Vatic Pro Saga Flash Long Handle. Now, I really like this mold of the Flash Long Handle. I think it's a big improvement over the short handle version personally, mainly because that longer handle pushes the bounce point up a bit higher, which is what I like in a paddle. As for the Saga series itself, I wasn't a huge fan of them when I first played with them, but they are one that grew on me. So they still have that plush feel when you want that good control, but they still offer great power when you need it. So number 3, we have the Flash Saga Long Handle. Moving on to number 2, we have the Spartus Olympus. Now, if I had to choose one paddle that I had to drill and play with for all of 2025, it would be this paddle, but because I switch paddles so frequently for paddle reviewing, I'm not very consistent with this, and I'm just not dialed in with it very well. Lately, I haven't been playing really well with it, but it is a paddle I really enjoy, and I really enjoy the feel of it. I just haven't been connecting with it lately, and because of that, it's fallen from the number 1 spot down to number 2 for me. And finally, at number 1, we have a paddle that kind of surprised me, and that's the new Chorus Shapeshifter HX. Now, I actually wasn't a huge fan of the original Shapeshifter, but I'm a big fan of all the changes that Chorus has made with their updated model, specifically the mold, which I'm a huge fan of compared to the original one. There's nothing too special about this paddle. It's just one that I've been connecting a lot with, and it's similar to something like the ISO Ryu, where it's nothing special, but it was a paddle I just picked up and was immediately able to play with really well. So it's one that I've been really consistent with, and I've been playing really well with it. So at number 1, we have the Chorus Shapeshifter HX. As for honorable mentions, we have the Bread and Butter Invader. I really like this polyester surface they use, especially with the fiberglass layer on the bottom. I like it better than something like the J2 Ti, but I think it's a really solid hybrid paddle. And the other one technically isn't released yet, but I hit the Super Court last night and I was actually a really big fan of it. And I can see this potentially dethroning the Shapeshifter HX for me, but we'll see in the new year. And finally, let's take a look at the elongated paddle category. And starting at number 3, we have the Bread and Butter Shogun. Now again, I'm a big fan of this polyester face, and I think the Shogun's just a fantastic all-court style paddle. It's got a good balance, good feel to it, and overall, just a really great paddle. Moving on to number 2, we have the Vatic Pro Saga series again, but this time in the V7 shape. Now, I prefer the V7 shape over the flash shape because I generally prefer elongated paddles over hybrid ones. You get a little bit more power with this shape and it's a bit more top heavy. And as for the short handle versus the long handle, I prefer the short handle on an elongated paddle because it just gives you a bit more stability near the bottom. And this is a shape that needs that more stability down there compared to a hybrid one. And finally, at number 1, we have a paddle that really surprised me this year and honestly just came out of nowhere, and that's the Luz Archer. The pro lineup from Archer were really surprising because their Gen 3 style elongated paddles was surprisingly very high twist weights. And all of them play very similar to the Pulse series, but I would say the Archer is my current favorite out of the 3 of them, and it's honestly probably the best paddle I'm playing with right now. Playing some really good games with it. So at number 1, it's going to be the Luz Archer. As for honorable mentions, we have the Gherkin Aspire, which is their budget lineup paddle, and honestly this is a really good paddle, but it just lost out to the Shogun for me. And then the other pro lineup paddles from Luz, so there's the Saber and the Berserker. Both of these are very good too. I think they're just a bit too head heavy for me, which is why I prefer the Archer. And finally, I would put the Hirachi X Control Plus in there. That one's also really good. Like I said, I really like that CFC surface, and I don't know, maybe the Hirachi Power might make a big move next year, so we'll see about that. Alright, so now that we're done with the top paddles in each shape, we're going to go over some random paddle awards. So starting off, let's go over what I think are the best edgeless paddles of the year. So I've actually received a lot of edgeless paddles this year. You just haven't seen me review a lot of them because most of them have been really bad and I've ended up donating most of them. But there were 3 that kind of stood out, and starting off we'll have the Diadem Icon Infinity Pro. I think this one probably has the most potential. I think if they keep expanding on the tech, it can have potential to be a really good edgeless paddle in a future iteration. Right now, I still think it's a solid one, but it's still not good enough compared to a paddle with an edge guard. Moving on, there's the Holbrook Aero series. Now, I haven't tried their metallic one. I've only had the carbon fiber one, but this one's solid. It's got some good internal weighting for it, so it's more stable than the majority of edgeless paddles I've hit, and overall it's a solid edgeless paddle. And the last one, I hit this one the most recently and I just got it, so this is the Enhanced Banger. I think it actually plays really similar to the Holbrook Aero series. I think it also does have that internal weighting because this twist weight is actually pretty solid. I got like 6.25 for this, but it's actually the most affordable option out of the most of the edgeless paddles out there, and I think it's a pretty solid paddle. But yeah, for the edgeless paddles, those are the 3 I would give the award to. But for the top one, just because of price, I'll give it to the Enhanced Banger. Alright, so the next award is going to be for the best beginner paddle. Now, for the best first paddle purchase, I'm still going to say the Friday Pickleball paddles. They have the 2 for $100 deal for their paint grit style paddles, and then the 2 for $150, I believe, for their raw carbon fiber paddles. I still think that's just an amazing deal, and those paddles are all really nice, really solid paddles. So that's an unbeatable deal, and it's an easy recommendation if you're looking for a first paddle purchase. But if you're looking for a more intermediate style purchase, or maybe your first serious paddle, then my recommendation is the Gherkin TPU lineup. They have this in all shapes, the elongated, hybrid, and standard. So yeah, it depends on what your goal is, but for the purposes of the award, I am going to give it to Friday. And then for for second place, I'll give it to the Gherkins. Now the next award is going to be for the best control paddles, and I'm still going to say the Vatic Prism series. I know a lot of people have been saying the Jelly Beans from 1164, but personally I like the shapes and options from Vatic Pro better, so for me I'm going to go with the Prism series for best control paddles. Moving on, our next award is going to be for the best all-court style paddles. Now, I know a lot of people like the J2 shape, and they will say the J2 Ti or the J2K, and I think this is a fantastic choice for the majority of people, but for me, I personally like the bread and butter Shogun better, so I'm actually going to give it to this. Obviously, I like this elongated shape better than the hybrid one. I just like the balance point better, and I play better with this one, so this one's going to go to the Shogun. And the next award is going to be for the top power paddle of the year. And 2024 has really been a year of a lot of power paddle releases. But for me, two paddles really stood out, and that's going to be the Neonic Flare Prime X and the Spartus Olympus. Now, it was a really tough choice between the two, but I'm just going to pick based on the one I've been playing with better, and that's going to be the Neonic Flare Prime X. All right, as for my personal paddle of the year, this is going to be based on what I think had good innovation, being unique to the market, and a paddle that I overall enjoyed a lot, and that's going to be no surprise for a lot of you, but the Spartus Olympus. Unfortunately, I'm not playing the best with it right now, but I still really enjoy this paddle, and for me, this is still the paddle of the year for 2024. And finally, for our last award, this one's going to be a bit random, but the #1 clothing brand for all pickleball companies. I actually own the clothes of a lot of the companies out there, but the #1 for me is going to be Beatnik. This is one of my favorite hoodies of all time that I've owned, and all their clothes so far have been pretty high quality, so shout out to Beatnik. Anyways, that's it for my top pickleball paddle picks for this year. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Now, if you've made it this far, you've also made it to the hidden giveaway for this video. As you can see behind me, I've got quite a bit of pickleball paddles back here. Some of them are lightly used and some of them are actually brand new, but I'm willing to give away quite a bit of them depending on how many likes and views I get on this video. To enter, fill out the Google form in the video description and comment down below which pickleball paddle you think I should have mentioned, or if you think my list was perfect. Now, 1 week from today, we'll take a look at how many views and likes are on this video, and I'll make an updated post on how many paddles I'll be giving out and who the winners are. Now, if you do want to check out any of the paddles that were mentioned in this video, I've added my discount code here and in the video description below, as well as links to buy all these paddles.
bought 2 separate pairs? Yeah. And do you alternate them? Yeah. 7-2.